A Russian mechanized assault worth tens of millions of dollars was stopped before it could break through Ukraine's defensive line. Tanks, armored vehicles, infantry, and self-propelled artillery moved forward as one attack group, but Ukraine turned that movement into a drone hunting zone. This was not just another battlefield video of a tank burning in the open. The more serious story is what happened before the first major strike. The entire Russian push was detected early, watched from above, and then broken apart layer by reconnaissance, UAVs, FPV drones, and anti-tank defenses. From the ground, the column may have looked powerful enough to pressure Ukrainian positions. From the sky, every vehicle became a moving target. The lead vehicle, the armored carriers behind it, the infantry moving with them, the supporting gun, and even the possible escape routes were all part of the same kill chain. For Russia, the danger was not only the loss of a few vehicles. The larger warning is that old-style mechanized attacks are becoming harder to survive in Ukraine. A tank can be stopped. Infantry can be forced out into trees and buildings. After about 30 minutes, drones can keep searching for hidden soldiers and even locate the fire support behind the assault. Keep watching, because this battle is not only about what Ukraine destroyed. It shows how a Russian attack can collapse step by step once the sky sees everything first. The Russian mechanized assault became vulnerable the moment Ukraine saw it moving. A column made of infantry, tanks, armored vehicles, and self-propelled artillery began to move near the border area. But the most important part of the battle did not happen on the road. It happened above it. A Ukrainian reconnaissance UAV picked up the first signs of movement before the Russian force could build pressure against the defensive line. From that point, surprise started to disappear. From the ground, the formation may have looked like a serious assault group. Tanks gave it weight. Armored vehicles gave infantry protection. The supporting gun behind it gave the attack a wider reach. But once a drone begins watching from above, the attack loses the first layer of protection. Its movement is no longer hidden, and every turn on the road gives the defenders more information. Ukrainian operators could read the column in layers. The lead vehicle mattered because it shaped the route for everyone behind it. The tanks mattered because they could bring heavy fire and protect the advance. The armored carriers mattered because they carried infantry toward the line. The self-propelled artillery mattered because it could support the push from behind. Even the roads, tree lines, and nearby buildings mattered because they could become escape routes or hiding places if the attack broke apart. This is why the battle did not begin with the first FPV drone strike. It began when the Russian movement became battlefield data. Once the UAV had the column in view, Ukrainian forces could decide what needed to be stopped first. They could watch whether the formation stayed tight or opened gaps. They could see if the vehicles were moving with confidence or slowing near danger points. That information gave Ukraine time to prepare the next stage. The Russian side still had armor and firepower, but those strengths become weaker when the defender already knows where the attack is going. A tank is dangerous when it appears suddenly at the right place. It is less powerful when its route is tracked before it arrives. An armored vehicle can protect troops during movement, but it also becomes a clear target when the sky follows it from the start. A supporting gun can shape the battlefield, but its role becomes risky if the assault pattern is being watched. The most important question was no longer whether Russia had enough vehicles to attack. The question was whether those vehicles could reach the Ukrainian line before Ukraine turned the road into a controlled target area. Early detection gave the defenders a chance to break the assault before it became a direct fight at the trenches. That is what makes this moment so important. Ukraine was not waiting blindly for a Russian column to appear at close range. It was already studying the attack while it was still forming. Once that picture was clear enough, the Russian assault was no longer just moving forward. It was moving deeper into a trap organized from above. Ukraine turned the road itself into part of the weapon system. Once the Russian column entered the controlled approach, the fight was no longer only about armor against armor. The Ukrainian defense began to work as one connected chain. Reconnaissance UAVs kept the vehicles in view. FPV drone teams prepared the strike routes, and anti-tank obstacles forced the Russian machines to slow down where speed mattered most. That loss of speed was the first break in the assault. A mechanized force needs movement to stay dangerous. Tanks and armored carriers are built to cross ground, push infantry forward, and force defenders to react quickly. But when the road narrows, when a vehicle hesitates near a barrier, or when the lead element begins to slow, the whole formation becomes easier to read and easier to strike. The Ukrainian side did not need to destroy every vehicle at once. It needed to damage the rhythm of the column. One stopped vehicle could block the next one. One burning armored carrier could force others to change spacing. One tank stuck in the wrong place could turn from a weapon into a heavy obstacle. Under UAV observation, those small disruptions began to create a larger collapse. The FPV drones then became the sharp edge of that system. They were not used like random flying bombs. Operators could wait for the right angle, then send the drone toward weak points that matter on an armored vehicle. The thickest armor is usually not the goal. The more valuable targets are often the engine area, the track system, the rear section, the optics, the open hatches, or the gaps around added protection. This is why a vehicle does not always need to explode to be removed from the fight. If a tank loses a track, it cannot keep up with the assault. If its optics are damaged, the crew sees less and reacts slower. If an armored vehicle takes a hit near the engine, it may stop in the middle of the road and trap the infantry inside or force them out under drone watch. A mobility kill can be enough when the sky is still watching. As the first strikes landed, the road became more dangerous for every vehicle behind the target. Drivers had fewer choices. Moving forward meant entering the same attack zone. Reversing risked confusion and collisions. Turning off the road could expose the vehicle to mud, open ground, or another prepared line of fire. The column was still armed, but its freedom of movement was shrinking with every second. The anti-tank defenses made this pressure worse. Obstacles did not need to stop every machine by themselves. Their real value was forcing the Russians into predictable behavior. A vehicle that slows near a barrier gives drone operators time. A crew that tries to find another path may expose the side or rear of the vehicle. A column that bunches up becomes more vulnerable to follow-up strikes. This is the new problem for armored attacks in Ukraine. The defense is not one weapon waiting at one point. It is a layered system where each part helps the next. The obstacle slows the machine. The UAV confirms the position. The FPV drone looks for the weak spot. Ground defenses keep pressure on the route. Together, they turn a road march into a trap. For viewers who follow modern warfare, this raises a hard question. What is more dangerous for a modern tank today? A traditional anti-tank weapon, an FPV drone, or being forced to stop under a sky that never looks away? The assault did not end when Russian soldiers abandoned their damaged vehicles. Once the first vehicles were hit, the shape of the battle changed. Russian infantry began leaving the armored column and moving toward nearby cover. Some ran toward trees. Others tried to reach bushes, broken walls, or buildings that looked safer than the road. From the ground, this seemed natural. A soldier who escapes a burning vehicle has one goal. He must disappear before the next strike arrives. But the battlefield was still being watched from above. The vehicles had lost movement, but Ukrainian drone crews had not lost sight of the assault group. What had started as a fight against machines now became a search for scattered infantry. The targets were smaller, but they were also isolated, tired, and less protected. This is where the second phase became so dangerous. When soldiers leave armored protection, they also leave behind heavy weapons, radios, medical supplies, and the confidence that comes from moving as a unit. A group once hidden behind steel turns into separate men, crossing open ground. Each one must choose a direction, find cover, and hope the drone camera is not already following him. The Russian troops tried to use the terrain around them. Trees could break the view from the road. Bushes could hide a body from someone standing nearby. Ruined houses could offer shade. Walls, and corners. Yet none of these places gave full protection against drones. From above, even a small movement under the branches can break the pattern of the terrain. If the soldier tries to shift position, an FPV drone can change its angle and come in from a side the cover was not meant to block. When normal vision becomes unclear, thermal optics can still separate body heat from the colder ground, turning a hidden position into a visible target. After about 30 minutes, Ukrainian drones continued searching for the remaining targets. This detail matters because the operation did not stop after the first visible damage. The drone teams stayed with the battlefield. They looked for soldiers who had slipped away from the vehicles, checked likely hiding areas, and expanded attention toward positions that could still support the attack. Survival after the first strike did not mean safety. The pressure also broke coordination. Soldiers who scatter into trees and buildings may reduce the chance of being hit together, but they also lose the ability to act together. One soldier reached a tree line and dropped low, hoping the branches would hide him from the road. But the drone did not follow the road view. It circled above the trees, watched the broken movement under the canopy, and waited until he tried to crawl deeper into cover. Another soldier ran toward a damaged building after leaving the vehicle. For a few seconds, the walls seemed to protect him, but the drone shifted to the side and watched the doorway instead of the man. When he tried to move through the next opening, the hiding place became a trap because the exit had already been marked. A third soldier tried to stay still in thick bushes, and from ground level that might have worked. From above, the shape of the bushes had changed, and a thermal camera could still separate body heat from the colder ground around him. The longer he waited, the more time the drone had to confirm the target. By this point, the Russian attack had lost more than vehicles. It had lost structure. Infantry were no longer advancing behind armor. They were trying to survive in fragments, while Ukrainian drones searched the spaces where they hoped to vanish. Ukraine could now begin looking beyond the scattered troops toward the next layer of the assault, the fire support behind them. Ukraine then began cutting into the fire support that kept the Russian assault alive. After about 30 minutes, the search widened beyond the damaged vehicles and scattered infantry. Ukrainian drone crews began looking for the gun that had been supporting the push from behind. The Russian column needed that supporting fire to create space. Tanks and armored carriers could bring force to the road, but they still needed artillery to shake Ukrainian positions, cover the movement, and make it harder for defenders to raise their heads. Without that pressure, every Russian vehicle near the approach became more exposed, and every soldier outside armor had fewer chances to regroup. Once the supporting gun was located, Ukraine had a new target with a different value. Destroying a tank stops one armored vehicle. Destroying a gun behind the attack can weaken the whole assault. It removes the pressure that helps the front elements move, and it breaks the connection between the force on the road and the firepower meant to protect it. This is where the battle shifted from stopping a column to dismantling the structure around it. The front vehicles were already under drone pressure. The infantry had been pushed into cover. Now the weapon that could still help them was being hunted. A Russian attack that began as a mechanized push was turning into separate pieces, and each piece was becoming easier to isolate. The supporting gun also created a trail. When artillery fires, it reveals a pattern through sound, smoke, movement, or the need to reposition. Drone teams do not need a perfect view from the first second. They can watch likely firing areas, check roads leading away from them, and follow the signs that point back to the system responsible for the shelling. Once the location becomes clear, the same sky that watched the road can guide the next strike. This matters because Russian fire support is often used to buy time. It can cover damaged vehicles, shield infantry trying to withdraw, and keep Ukrainian troops under pressure while commanders search for another move. If that layer is removed, the soldiers at the front lose more than explosive support. They lose the space needed to think, move, and recover. A separate operation showed the same logic when the Signum Battalion found and destroyed a Russian Grad rocket launcher after it fired at Ukrainian positions. Grad is dangerous because it can release a large volley quickly and cover a wide area before moving away. Its strength is speed, volume, and the ability to strike from behind the front. But that strength becomes weaker when drones shorten the time between firing and being found. A grad crew may launch rockets and try to leave, but the act of firing can draw attention to the vehicle, the route, and the nearby hiding area. If a reconnaissance UAV catches the movement, FPV teams can turn a mobile launcher into a target before it fully escapes. The destruction of a grad also sends a larger message. Ukraine is not only reacting to the armor at the front edge, it is watching the systems that prepare the next attack. Rocket launchers, artillery pieces, and support vehicles are part of the same battlefield picture because they shape whether Russian infantry can move with confidence. By this stage, the kill chain had reached its third layer. The vehicles on the road were hit first. The infantry that left them was tracked next. Then the guns and rockets behind the assault came under threat. The Russian push was no longer one strong movement. It was becoming a broken system, exposed from the front line to the fire support behind it. Ukraine was not only stopping one assault, it was attacking the system that would feed the next one. After the Russian column was broken apart, the battlefield did not become quiet. Ukrainian UAV units kept watching the roads behind the fighting area, because every failed attack still depends on a second layer. Trucks must bring ammunition. Fuel vehicles must keep armor moving. Small pickups must carry food, water, radios, batteries, spare parts, and sometimes fresh soldiers. If those links are cut, the next push becomes weaker before it even begins. This is why logistics became the next target. A tank on the road is easier to understand, but a supply vehicle can be just as important. It may not carry a cannon, yet it carries the things that allow cannons to fire. When Ukrainian drones follow a transport route, they are not only looking for one truck, they are watching the flow that keeps the Russian force alive. The pattern usually begins with movement. A vehicle leaves a storage point, follows a dirt road, slows near a tree line, or repeats a route that has been used before. The UAV can watch where the vehicle came from, where it stops, and whether other vehicles use the same path. Once that pattern is clear, the road itself becomes part of the target. A single transport hit in the wrong place can create problems beyond the vehicle. If it burns on a narrow track, other drivers may have to turn back. If it stops near a junction, the route can become blocked or risky. If it carried ammunition, the unit waiting near the front may have to reduce fire. If it carried fuel, armored vehicles may be forced to stay still longer than planned. Small depots and communication points also become vulnerable under this pressure. A warehouse does not need to be large to matter. A hidden stack of shells, fuel cans, drone batteries, or repair parts can support several local actions. If a UAV marks that site and FPV drones attack it, the loss can spread through the unit that depended on it. A broken antenna or radio station can have the same effect in a different way. Orders arrive late, requests for support slow down, and commanders lose a clear picture of what is happening. This is where drone warfare reaches beyond the explosion. The threat forces Russian troops to change behavior even before a strike happens. Drivers may take longer routes. Loads may be divided into smaller vehicles. Convoys may avoid open roads and wait for darkness. Each choice reduces risk in one way, but creates another burden. Smaller loads mean more trips. Longer routes use more fuel. Waiting delays the front. More movement gives drones more chances to notice a pattern. Russia can try to adapt with electronic warfare, camouflage, night movement, decoys, and side roads, but none of these methods removes the main problem. Every supply action now has to pass through a zone where the sky may already be watching. A truck is no longer safely behind the battle just because it is not near the trench. In this kind of war, the rear area can quickly become part of the front. By the end of this sequence, the meaning of the battle had expanded. Ukraine had not only stopped vehicles, tracked infantry, and threatened fire support. It had reached toward the logistics that would help Russia recover. When an army cannot move safely, hide with confidence, or resupply on time, the problem is no longer one lost assault. It is a sign that the whole rhythm of war is being changed. This battle sends a warning that is bigger than one destroyed Russian column. Ukraine did not only stop tanks, armored vehicles, infantry, and supporting fire. It exposed the full system behind a mechanized assault. First, FPV drones attacked the weak points of vehicles and forced the column to lose speed. When Russian infantry abandoned the damaged machines and tried to hide, drones kept searching from above and used thermal vision to find what ground troops might miss. The next layer was even more important. Ukraine did not stop at the front edge of the attack. It looked behind it. The supporting gun became a target. Then the pressure moved toward transport vehicles, supply points, communication links, and the routes that keep Russian forces alive. This is why the battle matters. The old idea of a heavy assault rolling forward with confidence is becoming harder to believe in a sky filled with drones. The next question is how Russia responds. More electronic warfare may come. Smaller assault groups may appear. Night movement, decoys, and deeper supply routes may become more common. But every answer creates a new problem, and Ukraine will likely keep adapting. So what do you think? Are drones only giving Ukraine a temporary advantage? Or are they now rewriting the rules of modern ground war? If this analysis helped you understand the battle more clearly, hit like, share this video, and subscribe to Military Force for more updates on war, weapons, and global politics.